I'm Agnes Ma, and currently I am a resident artist at Redline Contemporary Art Center. I also work as a assistant professor and 3D Studios coordinator at the Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design. The final semester of school, I took a jewelry and metalsmithing class, and I realized there's actually a lot of crossover between like the arts and the sciences, especially in like a field like metalsmithing. And then I decided that I would just try and figure out how to go from there. Directly, I don't think that a lot of my like work or the things that I focus on in my work directly necessarily relate to my degree since it was on a cellular level, but I think that I definitely still approach making and thinking very analytically. And like I don't regret having my degree in something else because I feel like I have a broader understanding of like the world around me. I would literally use like natural found objects and then contrast that with something that was in some way more man-made. So like at the beginning, I would juxtapose found elements with sterling silver. My finish was always really like a powdery white. And usually I'll balance kind of like the organic things with a very neutral palette. This last year, I started working with the 3D pen, and I found this beautiful green. And lately, this is, I think, it's much more obvious. Um, but the manufactured thing is always this like obnoxious color, and then I'll pair it with something that's more subtle or found or something like that. In terms of like how I think about how the Anthropocene era is more about like how we exist now, and like pretty much everything that is a result of humanity is also because humans don't really consider people other than ourselves. And so um, I'm using the environment and our relationship with the environment to in some ways glean on this, but at the same time I think it's really more about like why we exist as humans and how like why we end up existing the way we do. Like I'm not an outdoors person. I don't it's not my inclination to go outside and spend time outdoors. It's not that I don't like it. It's just like it's not a habit of mine. Growing up in Illinois, I think I always felt like the like I was always hot and sticky in the summer and then like cold in the wintertime. But I like when in grad school, I would start forcing myself to be outside, and it made me notice a lot of things. And that translated more when I came out to Colorado because it was just a different kind of landscape. And I don't know if necessarily the move from Illinois to Colorado had really changed anything, but it made me like notice more of the landscape and what differed in different areas. And also a lot of what we see in the landscape is actually are all invasive species. Like even in Illinois, I would see all the large grasses, the tall grasses along the roadside, thinking it was like, of course it was natural because of prairie grass, but none of it was natural. It was all invasive. So like one of the first times I ever had a visceral reaction about art was when I visited a retrospective of Doris Salcido. I felt as I walked through the exhibition this really somber like feeling, and then when I read the piece statement, I was just like, oh yeah, okay, that's exactly what I was feeling. And that's kind of something I've always admired about her work is that you as a viewer, as a visitor, as an experiencer, you are literally experiencing like the things she's trying to convey to you, and then that's what allows you to understand the severity of the issues. And so things like creating installations where somebody can walk through or really have that sort of visceral reaction to something is something like I just always strive for. Because I came from a background of not really understanding contemporary or fine art or art in general, metalsmithing was like a natural like transition for me because there was like functionality tied to it in terms of jewelry. More and more, I think I am able to step away from having inherent function. No, what I can do is create like this visual experience for people. Maybe they don't have to necessarily understand exactly what I'm trying to say, but at least they can have a feeling and like have a sense of what it might be and have that create some sort of curiosity within them. I think out of school, especially if you were used to having a studio at school, what you learn quickly is that space is important. And I have not had space to really spread out or like see an installation be fulfilled, um, at least more regularly in several years. So that's what I'm excited about is that I can actually like build something larger, put it up and like exist with it a little bit before it gets maybe put in a gallery of some sort. Um, and then also, I should say, like, I think community is really important. Like, you forget easily when you're by yourself a lot that how important it is, even just like casually somebody walking by and having a discussion with you about your work. Like, those sorts of discussions really help you think through not only like your concepts, but also logistics. Currently, I'm working on this piece that will include tumbleweeds. Basically, because on a road trip, I saw a bunch of tumbleweeds piling up, and that like made me feel weird about humanity because like we block these tumbleweeds that are also invasive species, but then they're just piled up and nobody's gonna like move them again. Um, and so some of it is like from those experiences. It's made me think more about the choices that we make. And I like what I would like to get into is thinking more about moral philosophy. I don't know if I would identify as a contemporary artist because I'm still struggling with like how I think about my work and things like that. And a lot of what I made before didn't necessarily have any like visual contemporary elements in it or even like conceptually. But what I think about contemporary art is some extension of conceptual art. Like a lot of what we do nowadays is it's not so much about like how the object exists in the world, but rather what the object is saying. And so, especially in an academic program, that's a question we constantly ask our artists, is or our student artists, is like why are you making the thing that you're making, and why is it important for it to exist in this world?